about car deduction. And everybody care about that. Business owner have cars. So they want to know, should I be deducting actual expenses or mileage expenses? And I also heard someone can do depreciation on the cars. What's going on? What should I do? Right? So now let's just kind of sort it out, see what you should do. Generally speaking, you must, if you want to deduct car, your business must in need of that. You cannot be in a business that you're deducting car. So I'm trying to think what business doesn't need a car. I actually couldn't think of any. But I guess you could say that if you are just specialized in talking on YouTube, you're not going anywhere, I guess you don't really need a specific car for business. You might use your personal vehicle for business. So we're also going to cover that. So generally speaking, as soon as you think of, oh yeah, I want to deduct my car. So I want you to ask yourself a question. Number one, is it for business purposes only? You're going to say yes or no. There's no other answer to this question. Are you going to use that particular vehicle for business only? You may have many cars, okay? But I'm just talking about that one. So that one of your vehicles, are you going to use it for business purposes only? If your answer is yes, you are not only going to deduct the car expenses, you also will make the car the business asset. Then you can depreciate the car. This is what we say by saying that entire cost of the car ownership and operation is deductible. Then what about I say no? This car, no, not all for business. Then that's fine. Then you have two choices. If it is not 100% for business, you can deduct on actual expenses. And you can also deduct that on standard mileage. So now, let's just kind of talk about the actual and the standard mileage because we are so, all of us know something about it, right? And so let's talk about standard mileage. So when you decided this is your personal car, but for some business trips that you use your personal car, so you're going to use standard mileage deduction. Folks, let me explain to you. For 2022, for this year, when you file your tax return in 2023, for 2022, your mileage has two rates in 2022. From January to June, the business mile reimbursement rate is 58.5 cents per mile. But after June, starting from July to December, it is 62.50 cents per mile. So now, one more calculation for whatever calculation you used to do, now you need to do two, separating your month. So you need to know which mile is coming from where, when, then you apply for the right rate, folks, okay? And then your tax accountant should ask you mileage by breaking down by two pieces. So the same thing for the medical miles. The first 6 months is 18 cents. The next 6 months is 22 cents. But the charitable donation miles is a 14 cents, no change. So just a little complex, right? And when you do standard mileage, folks, there is a 5 item you must have for every trip you take. Okay, 5. And number 1 is the date. What date you took that trip. Number 2 is the purpose of the trip. Number 3, from the point, from this place to the address. So from address to address. So that's the 4 things already. The last one, total miles you drove. Okay. Sure, you may be driving a lot more miles than what GPS says to the auditor. You're such a bad driver. You always get lost. Every time it takes other people 10 minutes to go for 10 miles, and you always drive 10 miles for 20 minutes. So you are running around for 20 miles. So that is totally happens. So you want to write your mile total not just by GPS, because you want to reflect your real mileage, right? So those 5 items on each trip, if you tell me that is impossible to do, I will tell you that if you get audited and the auditor will nail you just what I said and revert back saying that we don't agree with your deduction, it's too bad, so sad, you have to pay more taxes. That just happens. So let's make sure you understand the standard mileage deduction come with a price, okay? And so you need to do these things and know the rate, of course. What was the other one? The other one was the actual, right? So the actual, you have to retain receipts, like your gas receipt, your car repair receipt, and your car wash receipt, and God knows what you do, what else you do, and you need to keep receipts. And you also need to track mileage. You know why? Because you need to tell the percentage of business use. You can't just do repairs for $5,000. You only use 1% of your car for business. What's the point? Then we only deduct $5 for you, right? So that's what happens with the actual. So this whole thing we are talking about is when you use your personal car for business purposes. All right. So on the standard mileage deduction, you understand the changes that I already told you in 2022. That's actually 2 rate, right? In 2023, normally IRS announced the rate changes like in the middle of the year, they tell you what that is. So for you, from January to June in 2023, you go for the 62.5 miles, okay? You use that rate to continue until they give us a new rate. And the record keeping we talked to you about, and we talk about the 5 things, but I need to mention to you about this odometer reading. The IRS auditors are very good at asking that, because when we go oil change, the oil change company always put in our mileage reading on the car. So what the auditor would ask you is they want you to provide the beginning of the year odometer reading and the end of the year odometer reading. So based on your total claim, they will actually see whether your car really give that mileage. So I remember in one of the cases I had done for the audit, our client odometer reading was smaller than the mileage she claimed. It turned out to be that she has another car she drives for business, so she was just kind of combined it in one claim, but didn't really tell the tax preparer that, well, there's another car. And folks, do you know how many car you can claim on standard mileage claim? And let me give you that number. You cannot have more than 5. See how generous IRS has? IRS knows that we may all have 5 cars. That's not true, right? But you may be selling and buying new cars, so it's possible you got 4. But make sure that you can claim up to 5. But you want to do it by actual car instead of combining them, because it doesn't work. Because IRS want to read your odometer reading stuff, and they want to verify that you really did not exaggerate and your mileage. So now, and what we also want to talk about is the actual mileage, the actual expense claim, the record keeping. So we talked about how you need to, because it's actual, so you must have receipt, and you will keep those copy. You know how right now those carbon copies we get from the from most of the retailers and the gas station, those actually they lose the prints if it is 2 years older. And our audit, remember the statutory limitation is 3 years. So right now I'm in 2022. That means IRS can audit you for 2021 and the 2020 and 2019. So, but if you look at your 2019 receipt, it's already faded away. So I would encourage you to not only keep the receipt, also keep your credit card statement, so you can actually at least reference where you can see to the credit card to get that correct reading. So those actual expenses include gas, oil, and repairs, tires, insurance, registration fee, license fee, depreciation. All right. Remember in the very beginning, we talked about like if your car is 100% for business, you actually can just include that in the business, right? So if you included that in the business, you don't have to keep your personal receipt or anything. It is become company's book and records. So your car will be booked as a company asset. Then you will depreciate that, and all the car's expenses belongs to the company. Insurance belongs to the company. And what I want to mention to you is that it is not that difficult to put the car into the business. When you buy the car and on the title, you want to put your name on it and also the company's title, company's name on it. So at least when you buy insurance, if you don't have a big company, you don't really need to buy a company the company insurance to cover the car because you are the only driver, so you can just buy it for yourself. So your insurance expenses is not being you know being unlimitedly increased because God knows who you're gonna hire. Everybody drive this car, so the insurance company know that you just drive that yourself. But from the company standpoint, it has the title to the car, so it's appropriate company asset. So just a little tip for you when you're buying a new car, and you can consider putting your company names on it. And if you are self-employed and use car for business, you can deduct interest paid on the car loan as well. If you itemize, you can deduct the on the state and the federal taxes, and you have your car registration. I know since the Trump's Job Act is kind of useless for the state, we pay state taxes. They only allow 10,000, so there's not much to do in there. And even if you put in your car registration, not going to show up. So related to the parking fees, that's also is deductible, right? So, but not fines. That you violated law, you were drunk driving, speeding, and that is not business expense. It is also should not be the actual expenses that you presented to your tax return. So I hope this helps you a lot to know what you're going to do when you use cars for business, and to think big picture, okay? Whether it is all for business or not. All for business, put it as a business asset. If it is not, you got two ways to go, standard or actual. I will see you again for another very helpful topic. Bye bye.